Some stories are read and then forgotten. Others are told and then remembered for a lifetime. But there are a few rare stories, so vast, so luminous, so deeply interwoven with the fabric of civilization, that they do not simply live in books. They live in people. They shape cultures, guide moral codes, inspire art, and pass through the lips of poets, priests, parents, and pilgrims for centuries without losing their fire. The Ramayana is one such story. For over 2 millennia, this ancient epic has echoed through temples, courts, marketplaces, and homes. It has been sung by wandering bards on dusty roads, performed in moonlit village squares before entire communities, and depicted in carvings that stretch across the stone walls of sacred temples. Children grow up hearing it before they even learn to read. Warriors have looked to it for courage, lovers for devotion, leaders for wisdom. It is not just an old poem, it is a living force. But what is the Ramayana? Join me as I dive deep into this 2,500 years old historic book. And if you have not subscribed, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Now let's get back into the video. Tradition holds that it was composed by the Sage Valmiki, known as the Adi Kavi, the first poet. This title is not given lightly. Valmiki was the one who gave Sanskrit literature its poetic heartbeat, crafting his verses in a measured rhythm known as the shloka. These verses, some 24,000 in total, weave together a story so intricate and yet so universal that it transcends religion, geography, and time. The Ramayana spans 7 great books, or kandas, and follows the life of Prince Rama, heir to the throne of the kingdom of Ayodhya. Rama is no ordinary prince, he is the 7th avatar of Vishnu, the preserver of the universe in Hindu belief. His journey begins in the grandeur of a royal palace but soon takes him through the hardships of exile, the trials of the forest, the anguish of losing his beloved wife Sita to the demon king Ravana, and the colossal war that follows. Yet to call it simply a rescue mission would be like calling the sky just blue. The Ramayana is a cosmic drama. It is the meeting point of gods and mortals, virtue and temptation, destiny and choice. It is an adventure filled with mythical creatures, divine weapons, mighty battles, and journeys across oceans, but it is also an intimate story of family, love, friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice. Why should it matter to us, here and now, in a world far removed from the kingdoms and forests of ancient India? Because beneath the ornate palaces and magical encounters lies something deeply familiar, the eternal human struggle to live a life of integrity, to follow Dharma, the path of righteousness, even when it demands the greatest sacrifices. We see ourselves in Rama's moral dilemmas, torn between personal happiness and duty to others. We see ourselves in Sita's endurance, her strength in the face of trials, her quiet defiance against injustice. We see ourselves in Hanuman's unwavering loyalty, in Ravana's complex pride, in the bonds of brothers who would walk through fire for one another. This is why the Ramayana endures, because it is not merely a tale of ancient kings and divine beings, it is a mirror. A mirror that shows us courage in the face of fear, love in the face of loss, honor in the face of temptation. Imagine standing in a crowded square in northern India during Dussehra, as a towering effigy of Ravana is set aflame, fireworks bursting overhead, the night sky glowing with the colors of victory. Imagine sitting under the open skies of rural Thailand, where masked dancers perform their own version of the tale in the Ramayana. Imagine watching a shadow puppet play in Bali, where leather silhouettes dance against a golden screen, retelling the same story in a language you may not understand, and yet, you feel it. From India to Indonesia, from Nepal to Cambodia, from Sri Lanka to Laos, the heart of the Ramayana beats in 1,000 forms, speaking 1,000 tongues, yet telling one story. And across oceans, in faraway lands, readers and audiences who have never set foot in Asia discover in it the same truths their own ancestors sought in the great epics of Greece, Rome, or Scandinavia. The Ramayana is not just read. It is sung. It is acted. It is carved in stone and woven into silk. It is whispered in prayers, roared in battles, danced in festivals, and cherished in hearts. It is a journey that begins in a royal court and ends in the cosmic silence beyond death, but along the way, it walks through every corner of the human experience. And so, whether you encounter it in the pages of a book, in the rhythm of a chant, in the flicker of firelight at a village performance, or here, in the sound of this very voice, know that you are stepping into a river of story that has been flowing for over 2,000 years. This is the Ramayana. Section 1. Structure and Overview. The Ramayana is vast, yet it is perfectly ordered. Its journey unfolds across 7 great books, known as kandas. Each kanda is like a chapter in a symphony, distinct in mood and purpose, yet inseparably linked to the whole. It begins with the Bala Kanda, the book of childhood, where we meet Rama not as the hero of legend, but as a young prince of Ayodhya. Here we witness his divine origins, the blessings of the gods, and the early deeds that hint at the greatness to come. It is in this book that Rama wins the hand of Sita, shattering the bow of Shiva in a contest of strength and destiny. The Ayodhya Kanda shifts from the joy of love to the weight of fate. Rama is poised to inherit the throne, but a web of palace intrigue changes everything. Bound by duty and honor, he accepts exile for 14 years, accompanied by Sita and his loyal brother Lakshmana. The grandeur of the palace fades behind them as they step into the vastness of the forest, leaving the comfort of power for the trials of the unknown. In the Aranyakanda, the forest becomes the stage for both wonder and danger. Here, sages offer wisdom, demons test resolve, and the fateful encounter with Ravana takes place. Through deception and force, Sita is taken away, setting in motion the central quest of the epic. The Kishkinda Kanda carries us into the kingdom of the Vanaras, the monkey warriors. Rama forges an alliance with their exiled king, Sugriva, and meets the devoted Hanuman. Through friendship, loyalty, and shared purpose, the search for Sita begins to take shape. The Sondara Kanda is a jewel within the Ramayana, the soaring adventure of Hanuman's journey to Lanka. He crosses the ocean in a single bound, finds Sita in captivity, delivers Rama's message, and leaves behind hope in the heart of the despairing queen. The Yudhakanda, the book of war, thunders with conflict. Vast armies clash on the shores of Lanka, gods and demons take sides, and the fate of worlds seems to hang in the balance. In the final battle, Ravana falls, and Sita is freed, but the victory is not without its shadows, for questions of loyalty and honor remain. Finally, the Uttarakhanda brings resolution, and yet, it does not offer the simple comfort of a happily ever after. It tells of Rama's reign, his ultimate sacrifices as a king, and his eventual return to the divine realm. It reminds us that even the greatest of heroes cannot escape the burdens of destiny. Woven through these 7 books is a narrative style unlike any other, at once grand and intimate. It is a tapestry of adventure and drama, of spirituality and morality, where battles are fought not only with arrows and swords, but within the hearts of its characters. It is a story that dares to be both cosmic in scope and deeply human in feeling, offering not just entertainment, but a path toward understanding life itself. Section 2. The story begins, Bala Kanda and Ayodhya Kanda. The story of Rama does not begin with a battlefield or a prophecy shouted from the heavens. It begins with a king who could not sleep, not from fear, but from a longing so deep that it moved him to seek the counsel of sages and gods. King Dasharatha of Ayodhya was a ruler in a golden age, prosperous, beloved, and powerful. Yet the house of Ikshvaku felt incomplete, because the king had no heir. The kingdom's future, the continuation of a royal line and the duties that came with it, hung on that absence. So Dasharatha turned to the old answer, a sacred rite, a putrakameshti yajna, a fire ceremony performed to beget sons. The ritual called the sacred forces to witness and to bless, and in return the gods poured a single, potent gift into the hands of a priest, a consecrated food, a portion of divine offering meant to be shared among the king's wives. From that portion were born the 4 sons who would shape the course of kingdoms and the moral imagination of a continent. Kushalaya bore Rama, the eldest, steady, luminous, and calm, destined to embody the idea of the righteous man. Kaikeyi bore Bharata, proud and passionate, whose later heartbreak will test loyalty itself. Sumitra bore 2 sons, Lakshmana and Shatruna, twins who would be mirrors of devotion and brotherhood. Lakshmana, in particular, would become more than sibling, he would be shadow and shield, choosing exile and hardship over comfort as loyalty to Rama. Rama's childhood is painted not as a series of effortless victories but as careful preparation. He was schooled in the arts of kingship and war, trained in archery until his arms were steady as roots, instructed in scripture until his judgment was formed like tempered steel. He learned under sages who taught him the double lesson of power and restraint, how to bend an arrow, and how not to bend justice. The young prince displayed kindness and humility. He listened more than he spoke, he softened the rough edges of royal arrogance, and in moments of trial he showed something that would mark him for the rest of his life, an unwavering commitment to duty. Those early trials arrived sooner than anyone expected. The sage Vishvamitra came to King Dasharatha, asking for warriors to protect a sacred fire ritual from marauding demons. The palace might have sent its soldiers, but Vishvamitra pressed for Rama. In the forest that followed, the prince encountered the harsh and uncanny, demons who twisted the laws of nature, hermits who tested courage with riddles, and dangers that required not only strength but a particular kind of moral certainty. Rama and Lakshmana learned quickly that heroism in these stories is not spectacle alone, it is the readiness to stand against chaos when the price is exile and discomfort. When Rama returned to Ayodhya, his destiny seemed to shift from the training ground to the altar of marriage. King Janaka of Mithila, a ruler famous for wisdom, had set a test too difficult for ordinary men, the great bow of Shiva, a bow so heavy and so revered that no ordinary warrior could string it. In the Swayamvara, the bride-choosing ceremony where Sita would choose her husband, princes and kings tried and failed. Rama, who had grown in quiet strength, stepped forward. He lifted the bow with a calm that stunned the assembly and, with a single pull, broke the back of the weapon. The act was thunderclap and quiet prayer at once. He had not sought glory, yet destiny responded. Sita, daughter of Janaka and herself a figure of extraordinary purity and strength, was given in marriage. The union of Rama and Sita is not merely romantic decoration, it is the meeting of complementary virtues, Rama's unwavering duty and Sita's steadfast grace. Yet the palace of Ayodhya is a place of politics as well as poetry. Dasharatha, who had longed for heirs, now faced a different kind of failure, the consequences of promises kept. Kaikeyi, one of his queens, originally honored for her courage in battle, had once been granted 2 boons by the king in a moment of crisis or gratitude. Those boons lay in the vault of her memory until circumstances and the whispering of a poisonous mind set them in motion. Her nurse, Manthra, fed her suspicion and fear, questions about power, a future in which her own son would be eclipsed. With a heart turned by resentment and fear, Kaikeyi demanded that Dasharatha grant her the boons, that her son Bharata be crowned king, and that Rama be exiled for 14 years. Here is the crucial turn where the Ramayana stops being merely a tale of events and becomes a study in moral courage. Rama, raised to revere his father and to honor his word beyond his own ambition, does not bargain or bargain. He accepts the exile, though the edict cuts like a blade through the palace's joy. Dasharatha is torn between fatherhood and kinghood. His promises bind him as much as the laws of state bind a monarch. His grief is visible and raw, a ruler who would sacrifice his own happiness for what he believes is right. The court protests, petitions are made, yet the law, reinforced by vows and the weight of honor, stands immovable. And so Rama prepares to leave. The moment of farewell is one of the most searing in the epic because it is personal without being private. The prince who could command armies now must face leaving his home as a common exile. Sita refuses the palace luxury she has just been given. She insists on sharing the hardship of the forest with the man she has chosen. Lakshmana refuses the comfort of the court. He will not be left behind to enjoy what his brother renounces. These choices are not theatrical gestures, they are acts that reveal character. Sita's decision to accompany Rama reframes the marital bond as a fellowship of trial, not merely social contract. Lakshmana's companionship reframes brotherhood as a moral duty fulfilled by sacrifice. The people of Ayodhya weep in the streets. The king, constrained by his own promises and the workings of courtly destiny, collapses under sorrow and later dies of a grief that will not be consoled. Bharata, who had not asked for kingship and whose heart breaks at the injustice of his mother's machinations, becomes the moral counterpoint to Kaikeyi's ambition. He seeks Rama in the forest and pleads for him to return, only to be refused in a way that reveals the epic's central teaching: Dharma, righteousness, sometimes asks more of us than it asks of our enemies. Rama will not seize the throne, nor will he leave his duty as exile unhonored. Instead, Bharata takes Rama's sandals and places them on the throne in Ayodhya, ruling in his brother's name until the time of return. The beginning of Rama's journey is therefore more than a physical leaving of the city. It is a turning point in which ideals are tested against the hard edges of life. Duty demands exile. Love demands sacrifice. Righteousness demands submission to vows even when those vows bring personal ruin. As the three walk into the forest, a king's son no longer, a queen's husband reduced to a wanderer, a prince's loyal brother choosing the path of hardship, the story transforms into a moral odyssey. This is the moment where the epic's themes are planted firmly in the soil: duty as guiding star, sacrifice as inevitable price, righteousness as the compass that will lead men and gods through storms. Thus the Ramayana moves from palace to wilderness, from public ceremony to the private testing ground of the human heart. The lessons learned in those early chapters are not abstract, they are lived in cold nights, in hunger, in the noonday threat of demons, and in the aching memory of home. The exile is a crucible that will burn away illusion and reveal the contours of character. In these first books, the reader or listener is asked to keep watch not for spectacle alone, but for the slow forging of a hero whose greatness will be measured in loyalty, sorrow, and choices made when no one else is watching. Section 3, Trials in the Forest, Aranya Kanda. The forest is not merely a backdrop in the Ramayana, it is a living, breathing character that shapes thought and action. In the Aranya Kanda, the palace's polished floors give way to damp earth and rustling leaves, and the rhythms of courtly life are replaced by the slow chant of hermits, the whisper of wind through banyan roots, and the constant, watchful presence of the wild. For Rama, Sita, and Lakshmana, the forest becomes a place of learning and hardship, a place that reveals character under pressure and strips away the comforts that once masked inner truth. Life in the forest is at once austere and intimate. The three live simply in hermitages, sharing meager meals offered to wandering sages and accepting whatever hospitality the woods yield. They encounter seers who test their resolve and demons who test their courage. They shelter sages from marauding Rakshasas, restore sacred rites interrupted by monsters, and confront moral puzzles posed by ascetics who live by paradox. These episodes are not mere diversions, they are the slow, relentless forging of souls. Rama's mastery of the bow and his steady restraint are refined on these green battlegrounds, while Sita's quiet dignity is tempered by solitude and the constant threat of violence. Lakshmana stands as sentinel, fierce, watchful, an ever-present blade between danger and peace. It is in this landscape of austerity that the first seeds of tragedy are sown. The forest introduces us to Shurpanakha, a Rakshasi whose encounter with Rama and Lakshmana begins a chain of events that will echo to the ends of the earth. Struck by Rama's radiance, she approaches him in a manner that blurs desire and insult. Rebuffed, she turns on Sita in jealous fury. Lakshmana, acting to protect his brother and sister-in-law, disfigures Shurpanakha, cutting off her nose and ears in the heat of righteous defense. Humiliated and enraged, she flees to Lanka and to her brother, Ravana, carrying with her the poison of vengeance. What begins as a personal scuffle thus becomes the seed of cosmic calamity. The wound to an ego in a forest will, by the turn of fate, open a war between kings. If Shurpanakha's mutilation plants the spark, the golden deer becomes the cunning that fans it to flame. The deer appears one dusk like a vision, its coat alight as if woven from morning sun, its movement soft and almost human. Sita beholds it and is entranced by its beauty. The deer seems less an animal than a dream made flesh. The creature is in truth a demon in disguise. Maricha, enlisted by Ravana's designs, has assumed the form of a bewitching stag to lure the prince away from home. Sita's longing for the exotic and the luminous, a perfectly human longing, becomes the instrument of disaster. She asks Rama to capture this marvel for her as a token of love and wonder. Rama, ever the dutiful husband, consents and takes up the chase. What follows is one of the most haunting episodes in the epic, an exercise in longing, illusion, and deceit. Rama pursues the golden deer across open glade and shadowed glen, his arrows singing, until at last he strikes the shape. Maricha, mortally wounded, decides to perform one final cruelty. With his dying breath he mimics Rama's voice, crying out as if Rama himself is under attack. The sound reaches the hermitage with fatal immediacy. Sita, hearing the voice she loves calling in danger, is again seized by fear. She begs Lakshmana to go to Rama's aid. Lakshmana refuses at first, trusting in Rama's strength. Then, after Sita's anguished insistence, he yields to the human plea. Bound by love and duty, he steps away, leaving Sita alone in the hut. In many retellings of the tale a protective circle is drawn, the famous Lakshmana Rekha, a line beyond which danger must not cross. Whether understood as literal chalk on the earth or as a symbolic boundary of sacred protection, the image endures because it captures the fragile line between sanctuary and exposure, between the boundaries that humans create and the wildness that always threatens to cross them. Left alone, Sita becomes vulnerable to seduction and deceit. Ravana, seeing an opportunity he has longed for since Shurpanakha's tale reached him, approaches in disguise, sometimes as a mendicant, sometimes as a learned ascetic. Representations vary, but the method is the same: soft words, cunning flattery, and the appeal to a woman alone in a strange land. Ravana's abduction is neither brief nor simple. He reveals his nature through a mixture of terrifying force and willful seduction, plucking Sita from the hermitage and ascending into the sky on the Pushpaka Vimana, a flying chariot that becomes an image of otherworldly power. Sita resists. Her refusal and fortitude are central to her character. She meets Ravana's claims with dignity and courage, repudiating his advances and clinging to her fidelity to Rama. Yet the spectacle of a demon king carrying away the chosen queen is a rupture in the world's moral order, a sacred household violated, a promise to protection broken, a personal tragedy that expands into a cosmic affront. The abduction marks the story's most dramatic turning point. What began as intimate tests of heart and habit escalates into an existential crisis. The personal becomes political. The forest, with its sages, its tests, its fleeting beauties, has shifted from a proving ground to a battlefield. Rama's world is no longer merely a place of exile where a prince may learn humility, it has become the stage for the great conflict between righteousness and unrighteousness. The lines between dharma and adharma, between duty and desire, are now drawn in stark relief. Emotion in this section is raw and human. Sita's terror and dignity, Rama's anguish at discovering her gone, Lakshmana's guilt for leaving, these are not abstract virtues but living pains. When Rama returns and finds only the feather of the golden deer, the sense of loss is immediate and absolute. There is wrath but also a deeper, more devastating sorrow, the failure of guardianship, the collapse of the small protections that sustain domestic life. The forest, which had been the site of spiritual discipline and moral testing, now witnesses the outbreak of full-scale cosmic struggle. The Aranyakanda thus functions as the hinge in the epic. It forces the characters to confront the consequences of choices made from love and duty, and it shows how frailty and temptation can ripple outward to touch nations. It exposes the human heart to the wild and simultaneously exposes the wild to human consequence. Through deception and desire, through courage and error, the tragic drama of Sita's abduction launches Rama on the path that will summon allies from unlikely places, awaken monumental loyalties in Vanara chieftains, and ultimately bring an army to the shores of Lanka. The collision of private grief and public duty that begins in the quiet of a forest hermitage will end, if such a word can be used, in an elemental clash of good and evil that defines the epic's moral horizon. Section 4. Forming Alliances, Kishkinda Kanda. If the forest was the stage of loss, Kishkinda becomes the forge of alliances. The grief-stricken Rama, wandering southward with Lakshmana in search of Sita, finds himself drawn into a world unlike the ascetic groves and Rakshasa-haunted clearings of the Aranyakanda. Here lies Kishkinda, the kingdom of the Vanaras, a race of extraordinary monkey warriors whose agility, strength, and cunning straddle the border between myth and miracle. This land is alive with movement, leaping forms among the cliffs, voices echoing in rocky valleys, and a sense that the air itself holds secrets. It is in this place that fate introduces Rama to two figures who will change the course of his quest, Sugriva, the exiled monkey king, and Hanuman, his most devoted minister. The meeting is not random but woven by destiny. Hanuman is the first to greet the weary brothers. Disguised as a humble ascetic, he approaches with a measured politeness that hides his immense power. The moment is one of recognition, not just of names or purposes, but of spirit. Rama sees in Hanuman a heart that burns with sincerity and a mind as sharp as any prince's. Hanuman, in turn, recognizes in Rama the embodiment of Dharma and the leader his own destiny compels him to serve. Their connection is immediate, a friendship bound less by words than by an unspoken accord. Through Hanuman, Rama is introduced to Sugriva, who is living in exile after being overthrown by his brother, Vali. Sugriva's plight mirrors Rama's in certain ways, both are rulers separated from their rightful positions, both are bound by loyalty to those they love, and both face a powerful adversary. The air between them is charged with mutual understanding. Sugriva, cautious but hopeful, offers an alliance. If Rama will help him reclaim his throne from Vali, Sugriva will commit his forces to the search for Sita. The pact is not a cold bargain but an exchange rooted in the epic's moral world, where duty and reciprocity form the basis of trust. Rama accepts, recognizing that the quest for Sita cannot be accomplished by the strength of two brothers alone. Thus begins the intertwined narrative of personal justice and shared cause. The confrontation with Vali is swift but morally complex. Vali is a warrior of staggering power, whose feats are sung even among his enemies. Yet his rule over Kishkinda has become tainted by the injustice done to his brother. Rama intervenes in their duel, striking Vali from concealment with a single, fatal arrow. This act, one of the most debated in the Ramayana, raises questions about the boundaries of righteous action. Was Rama's deed just, given Vali's wrongs? Or did it bend the laws of fair combat? The text does not ignore this tension, instead, it uses the moment to explore how Dharma must sometimes be interpreted in light of circumstance. With Vali's death, Sugriva ascends once more to the throne. True to his word, he begins to prepare for the search for Sita, sending out Vanara bands in all directions. Yet it is Hanuman, now fully bound in loyalty to Rama, who emerges as the heart of this new alliance. Hanuman is not merely a servant, he is the embodiment of devotion. His energy, resourcefulness, and moral clarity set him apart, and his very presence becomes a reassurance to Rama. The trust between them deepens not through declarations but through action. Hanuman listens intently, anticipates needs, and accepts the mission as his own life's purpose. Kishkindakanda is more than a transitional episode, it is the turning of the tide. The quest, which began as a solitary grief, now becomes a shared enterprise. Rama gains allies not through conquest alone but through the recognition of shared struggle and the forging of bonds stronger than blood. The rocky plateaus and caves of Kishkinda, with their leaping warriors and echoes of ancient battles, stand as witness to the birth of a coalition that will soon span species, kingdoms, and oceans. And at its heart, the quiet certainty of Hanuman's vow, that there is no force, divine or demonic, that can stand between him and the fulfillment of Rama's cause, marks the beginning of a friendship and a loyalty that will carry the epic to its most heroic heights. Section 5, The Heroic Search, Sundarakanda. If Kishkinda was the forging of alliances, Sundarakanda is the gleaming blade they produce, a chapter where devotion, daring, and destiny merge into one unstoppable force. This book belongs almost entirely to Hanuman, and it is in these pages that his legend takes its most luminous form. The search for Sita has led to a daunting barrier, the vast ocean that separates the southern tip of the mainland from the golden citadel of Lanka. The Vanara scouts, spread across the land, have scoured forests and mountains in vain. Finally, word comes, a faint trail, a whisper of her captivity in Ravana's island fortress. Now the question is not where she is, but how to reach her. The sea stretches out, restless and unending, and even among the Vanaras, none step forward, until Hanuman. Here, his power is revealed not as arrogance, but as a realization of potential. Reminded by Jambavan, the wise elder, of his forgotten divine strength, Hanuman swells in spirit. Standing upon the mountain's edge, he gathers his energy, invoking Rama's name, and in a bound that shakes the air, he soars into the sky. His leap is not just physical, it is a moment of spiritual transcendence, a creature of earth embracing the limitless. The journey across the ocean is a miniature epic in itself. Hanuman faces temptations, challenges, and illusions sent by the sea and the gods to test his will. A mountain rises from the waves to offer him rest. He politely refuses, for his mission allows no delay. A serpent demon, Sir Asa, demands he enter her mouth, he outwits her with wit and agility. A shadowy being attempts to drag him into the depths, he strikes it down. Each encounter strips away doubt, leaving only focus and faith. When Hanuman finally lands upon Lanka, the city sprawls before him, gleaming palaces, towering gates, and streets humming with the life of Rakshasas. He moves like a shadow through its gardens and halls, seeking the one figure who has driven the hearts of so many to action. At last, in the Ashoka grove, under the shade of flowering trees, he finds her, Sita, Wan, and steadfast, surrounded by guards but unbroken in spirit. The meeting between Hanuman and Sita is one of the most tender and profound moments of the Ramayana. He approaches with humility, first reciting Rama's deeds to win her trust, then offering her the ring of her husband as proof of his message. In her eyes, he sees the weight of suffering and the light of unwavering resolve. She refuses his offer to carry her away, not out of doubt in his strength, but out of loyalty to Rama's honor, the rescue must be his deed, his triumph. Before leaving, Hanuman's mission takes on another dimension, to show Ravana that the forces against him are not to be underestimated. He allows himself to be captured, brought before the king, and speaks boldly of Rama's coming wrath. Ravana orders his tail set ablaze, a punishment that turns into spectacle. Hanuman, leaping from roof to roof, sets the city aflame, leaving Lanka's night sky glowing with fire. It is not destruction for vengeance's sake, but a warning, the tide of war has begun. Hanuman returns to Rama not merely as a messenger, but as a living embodiment of courage, loyalty, and faith. The Sundarakanda reminds us that greatness is not measured solely by victory, but by the willingness to risk everything for a cause greater than oneself. Through Hanuman's journey, the Ramayana shows that devotion can make the impossible not only possible, but beautiful. Sundara. Section 6, The Great War, Yudhakanda. The Sundarakanda ends with a promise: war is inevitable. And the Yudhakanda delivers it with a scale and grandeur that transforms the Ramayana into a cosmic battlefield. Here, every alliance, every vow, and every act of devotion converges into a single, monumental purpose: to free Sita and restore the balance of Dharma. The preparations begin with a feat that seems beyond even the Vanara's boundless energy, the crossing of the ocean by an entire army. Standing at the shore, Rama gazes toward Lanka's golden walls, shimmering in the distance. There is no hesitation, only resolve. At his command, the Vanaras, led by the architect Nola, begin constructing a massive stone bridge across the sea. Each boulder, each tree trunk, is carried with the chanting of Rama's name, and by divine grace, the stones float upon the waves. Over days and nights, the Setu takes form, a living testament to cooperation, faith, and determination. When the bridge is complete, the army marches into Lanka with a roar that echoes across the island. What follows is a succession of battles as fierce as any in world literature. The Rakshasa forces, commanded by Ravana's fearsome kin, Kumbhakarna, Indrajit, and countless other champions, meet the Vanaras with ferocity. The clash is not only between weapons, but between two visions of the world, one rooted in greed, pride, and domination, the other in loyalty, justice, and righteousness. The duels within the war are stories in themselves. Indrajit, master of sorcery, wounds Rama and Lakshmana with his enchanted arrows, only to be hunted down and slain by Lakshmana after a grueling pursuit. Kumbhakarna, the giant of Lanka, awakens from his enchanted slumber to fight like a mountain come alive, scattering Vanaras like leaves before a storm. Yet, despite his might, he falls, his death shaking even his enemies with its pathos, for in him is a tragic loyalty to his brother, twisted by the wrong cause. As the war grinds on, Ravana's pride hardens into desperation. His final duel with Rama is a storm of divine weaponry and relentless will. The sky darkens under the flight of arrows, the earth trembles beneath their chariots. Ravana fights with all the strength of his boons, his 20 arms a blur of destruction, but Rama stands unshaken, guided by purpose rather than fury. At last, with the Brahastra, Rama strikes the decisive blow. Ravana falls, and with him falls the shadow that had loomed over the world. The victory, however, is not without its tests. Sita is brought before Rama, and here the epic confronts one of its most debated and poignant moments. To silence any whisper of doubt about her purity after her time in captivity, Sita undergoes the Agni Pariksha, the trial by fire. Clad in dignity, she steps into the flames, and the fire god Agni himself emerges to proclaim her untouched and pure. It is a moment both triumphant and deeply human, revealing the cruel weight of societal expectations even in the hour of victory. With Sita vindicated, the war ends, and the air of Lanka shifts from smoke and blood to the calm after the storm. The bridge that brought Rama's army now bears them homeward, their purpose fulfilled. The Udakanda closes with the affirmation that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, courage, loyalty, and righteousness can prevail, but it also leaves us with the sobering truth that such victories often come at the cost of deep trials, both on the battlefield and in the heart. Section 7. Return and Rule, Uttarakhanda. The Udakanda ends with a triumph, but the Uttarakhanda reminds us that life's most profound challenges do not always come on the battlefield. If the earlier books of the Ramayana are about the quest to uphold Dharma in the face of external threats, the Uttarakhanda is about the quieter, more painful struggle of upholding it within the walls of one's own home. Rama returns to Ayodhya in a scene of unmatched joy and grandeur. The city streets are adorned with garlands, the air thick with incense and music, the people radiant with anticipation. Rama's coronation, the long-delayed Pattabhisheka, is a moment of fulfillment not only for him, but for the entire kingdom. At last, the rightful heir sits on the throne, and the reign of Rama Rajya begins, remembered in Indian tradition as the Golden Age, a time of justice, peace, and prosperity, where no one suffered hunger or fear, and where the king's integrity was as constant as the sun. Yet, even in this era of harmony, shadows creep in. Whispers circulate in the streets, questions about Sita's time in Ravana's captivity. Though Agni himself had testified to her purity, the murmurs persist. For Rama, whose personal love for Sita is beyond doubt, the challenge is not his own trust, but the heavy crown upon his head. As king, he must be above reproach, not only in action but in perception. In a decision that has haunted retellings for centuries, he chooses the duty of a ruler over the desire of a husband, sending Sita into exile to preserve the kingdom's faith in its moral order. Sita leaves Ayodhya without anger, her dignity unbroken, carrying within her the twin sons of Rama, Lava and Kusha. She finds refuge in the hermitage of Valmiki, the very sage who composes the Ramayana itself. There, she raises her children in the forest, teaching them virtue, wisdom, and the martial skills of their lineage. Years later, fate brings the boys back into their father's world. During a grand sacrifice, Lava and Kusha, unaware of their heritage, recite the Ramayana before the court. Their voices carry the entire saga, the loves, the losses, the wars, and when they speak of Sita, the hall falls into a hush. Rama learns they are his sons, and joy surges within him. But the story does not conclude with a simple reunion. When Sita is called upon once more to prove her purity, she refuses to submit to another trial. Instead, she prays to her mother, the earth, to receive her if she has lived in truth. The ground opens, and Sita descends into it, returning to her eternal home, leaving behind a silence more powerful than any argument. The Uttarakhanda closes with Rama's reign continuing in peace and righteousness, but his personal life marked by the absence of the woman who had been his partner in every trial. In time, he too departs from the world, returning to his divine form as Vishnu, and the Ramayana leaves us with a legacy both inspiring and bittersweet. It is a reminder that Dharma is not always gentle, that the path of righteousness can demand sacrifices that cut to the very heart. And yet, through joy and sorrow alike, the Ramayana stands as a testament to the enduring power of duty, compassion, and the ideals that can guide humanity through even the most painful choices. Section 8. Deep dive into key characters and symbolism. The Ramayana is not merely a chain of events, it is a tapestry of personalities, each one crafted with layers of moral, emotional, and symbolic depth. These characters are not frozen in time, they live, breathe, struggle, and triumph in ways that resonate far beyond their ancient setting, offering reflections on what it means to be human, divine, and everything in between. Rama stands at the center, not just as the hero of the story, but as the embodiment of Maryada Purushottama, the perfect man who never wavers from his duty, even when it tears at his own heart. He is prince, warrior, king, and divine incarnation of Vishnu, but also a husband, a son, and a man tested by loss and temptation. Rama's greatness lies not in supernatural feats, though he is capable of them, but in his unshakable adherence to Dharma. When the choice is between his father's word and his rightful throne, he chooses exile. When victory is his, he tempers it with humility. In Rama, we see the ideal leader, strong yet compassionate, resolute yet selfless, and the constant reminder that moral integrity often requires personal sacrifice. Sita is no passive figure in this epic. While she is often celebrated for her devotion and purity, her true strength lies in her endurance, dignity, and moral courage. She follows Rama into exile without hesitation, not out of submission but out of choice and loyalty. Her abduction by Ravana becomes the central crisis of the epic, yet even in captivity, she remains unshaken in her faith, refusing all offers of comfort or compromise. The Agni Pariksha, her trial by fire, is more than a test of chastity, it is a symbolic affirmation of her inner truth. Later, in the Uttarakanda, her choice to return to the earth rather than face another public trial reveals a quiet defiance. She will submit to duty, but not to indignity. In Sita, we see the strength that comes from steadfastness, resilience, and self-respect. Hanuman, the devoted Vanara, captures hearts perhaps more than any other character in the Ramayana. He is the embodiment of service, courage, and boundless faith. From his first meeting with Rama, his loyalty is instantaneous and absolute, not because of divine compulsion but because he recognizes in Rama the truth he wishes to serve. Hanuman's leap across the ocean, his confrontation with demons, his gentle reassurance to Sita, and his fearless burning of Lanka are not acts for glory, they are offerings of devotion. In him, power and humility coexist perfectly. Though he possesses the strength to move mountains, he never seeks the throne or credit. Hanuman represents the truth that greatness is found not in power itself, but in the causes we choose to serve with it. Ravana is the most complex of the epic's figures, a towering intellect, a master of statecraft, a formidable warrior, and a devout scholar of the Vedas. Yet, his brilliance is tainted by unchecked pride and desire. His love for Sita is not love but obsession, and it blinds him to reason, leading to his ruin. He is both terrifying and tragic, a ruler who could have been remembered for greatness, undone by a single flaw he refused to master. In Ravana, the Ramayana offers not a simple villain, but a cautionary tale, a reminder that wisdom without humility can be more dangerous than ignorance. Together, these characters are not just parts of a story, they are archetypes of universal human values and struggles. Rama's integrity, Sita's resilience, Hanuman's devotion, and Ravana's pride are not bound by time or geography, they speak to the battles we all fight, within ourselves and in the world around us. They remind us that virtue is not effortless, that strength is not merely physical, and that the greatest victories are often those won over one's own weaknesses. In the end, the Ramayana's characters endure because they are both idealized and relatable. Mirrors in which we see both who we are and who we might aspire to be. Section 9. Universal Themes in the Ramayana. The Ramayana endures not merely because it is a story well told, but because it carries within it truths that transcend culture, religion, and time. Its narrative is the vessel, its themes are the lifeblood, deep, universal, and endlessly relevant. At its heart is Dharma, the principle of righteousness, duty, and moral order. In the Ramayana, Dharma is not a single, simple law, it is a complex, living guide that shifts with roles, relationships, and circumstances. For Rama, Dharma means honoring his father's word, even when it costs him the throne. For Sita, it is the steadfast loyalty to her husband, coupled with the dignity to uphold her own truth. For Hanuman, it is unflinching service. Even Ravana has his own warped sense of Dharma, protecting his kingdom and kin in his own way, though it is undermined by his injustice toward Sita. The epic reminds us that the challenge is not knowing what is right, but having the courage to act upon it when it is difficult or costly. Another thread woven through the Ramayana is the cosmic battle of good versus evil. On one side stands Rama, the embodiment of virtue; on the other, Ravana, the embodiment of arrogance and desire unrestrained. Yet, the epic complicates the idea of absolute good and evil by granting its antagonist intelligence, strength, and devotion to Shiva, suggesting that even the most destructive beings have admirable qualities, and even the noblest heroes face moral dilemmas. The struggle is as much within the self as it is on the battlefield, urging us to examine the shadows and light in our own nature. Loyalty, sacrifice, and love form the emotional foundation of the story. Lakshmana's unwavering decision to join Rama in exile, Bharata's refusal to take the throne meant for his brother, Hanuman's tireless search for Sita. These acts remind us that loyalty often demands personal sacrifice. And love, in the Ramayana, is multifaceted: the romantic bond of Rama and Sita, the fraternal devotion between brothers, the pure service of Hanuman for Rama. Each form of love is tested by distance, duty, and hardship, proving its worth not in comfort, but in adversity. The Ramayana also navigates the delicate dance between fate and free will. The divine purpose of Rama's incarnation, to destroy Ravana, suggests a predestined outcome. Yet, how that destiny unfolds is shaped by countless human choices: Dasharatha's fateful promise to Kaikeyi, Sita's decision to cross the protective line in pursuit of the golden deer, Hanuman's leap of faith across the ocean. The epic invites us to see life as a balance. Certain events may be beyond our control, but how we respond to them remains our own. Finally, devotion and faith emerge as forces capable of overcoming the impossible. Whether it is Hanuman crossing the ocean through sheer trust in Rama's name, or Sita enduring captivity with unwavering confidence in her rescue, the Ramayana teaches that faith is not passive hope, it is an active force that inspires courage, resilience, and perseverance. In moments when logic fails and the odds seem insurmountable, faith becomes the bridge between despair and victory. These themes are not bound to the ancient world. They echo in the choices leaders make, in the bonds we share with loved ones, in the moral crossroads we encounter every day. That is why the Ramayana still speaks to people in temples, classrooms, theaters, and homes across the globe. It is not just a story from India's past, but a mirror reflecting the timeless challenges and aspirations of the human spirit. Section 10: The Ramayana's Cultural and Spiritual Legacy. The Ramayana is more than an ancient text. It is a living tradition, continually retold, reinterpreted, and relived in countless ways across centuries. Its presence is not confined to the pages of scripture, it flows into festivals, rituals, performances, art, and even everyday moral thinking in ways both profound and celebratory. In the Hindu calendar, its influence is most visibly felt during festivals. Rama Navami, marking the birth of Lord Rama, is celebrated with devotional songs, readings of the Ramayana, and elaborate processions. Temples are adorned with flowers, and devotees fast or offer prayers to honor the embodiment of righteousness. Equally significant is Dussehra, also known as Vijaya Dashami, commemorating Rama's victory over Ravana. Across India, towering effigies of Ravana, his brother Kumbhakarna, and his son Meghnad are set aflame in dramatic public spectacles, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil. These events are not mere reenactments, they are communal affirmations of moral ideals. On the stage, the Ramayana finds vivid expression in Ramlila, the traditional theatrical retelling of the epic, often staged in open-air settings. These performances can last several nights, combining music, dialogue, dance, and elaborate costumes. In classical dance forms such as Bharatanatyam, Kathakali, and Odissi, episodes from the Ramayana are transformed into graceful storytelling through movement and expression. Painters, sculptors, and poets across centuries have drawn from its imagery and characters, making it one of the most visually and emotionally rich sources of inspiration in Indian art. The epic's reach, however, extends far beyond India's borders. In Thailand, the Ramayana adapts the story to reflect Thai culture and values, with ornate murals in Bangkok's Grand Palace depicting scenes from the saga. In Indonesia, shadow puppetry known as wayang kulit brings the tale to life in intricate silhouettes and music. Cambodia's Reamka, Laos's Phra Lak Phra Lam, and Malaysia's own variations weave the Ramayana into their cultural fabric, proving its adaptability and universal appeal. In modern times, the Ramayana has crossed yet more boundaries, entering films, television serials, comic books, novels, and animated adaptations. In the late 1980s, an Indian television version of the Ramayana drew millions of viewers into shared national viewing experiences. Today, the story is retold in graphic novels, animated series for children, and cinematic reimaginings, ensuring that new generations encounter its lessons in familiar formats. What keeps the Ramayana alive is not just its antiquity, but its resonance with the present. In an era where questions of morality, leadership, justice, and personal sacrifice are as urgent as ever, the epic offers timeless examples and cautionary tales. It bridges the gap between the spiritual and the everyday, reminding us that ideals are not abstract. They must be lived. Across cultures and generations, the Ramayana speaks with the same enduring voice, that goodness is worth striving for, that duty sometimes demands personal loss, that love and loyalty give life its deepest meaning, and that faith, whether in God, in others, or in our own better nature, can guide us through even the longest and hardest of journeys. To conclude, we can say that the Ramayana stands as one of humanity's most enduring masterpieces, a sweeping tapestry of adventure, morality, and spirituality woven together in a way that continues to inspire, challenge, and uplift. At its simplest, it is the tale of a prince's exile, a queen's steadfast love, a friend's unshakable loyalty, and a kingdom's struggle between right and wrong. But beneath the surface, it is also a profound meditation on the eternal questions of life. What does it mean to do the right thing when it costs you everything? How do love, faith, and sacrifice shape the course of our destiny? And can the triumph of good over evil be won not just on the battlefield, but within the human heart? In its pages, we find an unparalleled range of human experience, joy and sorrow, loyalty and betrayal, courage and doubt, victory and loss. The Ramayana's characters are more than figures from a distant past, they are mirrors in which we see our own struggles, hopes, and choices. Rama's adherence to Dharma in the face of personal pain, Sita's resilience in the midst of injustice, Hanuman's unwavering devotion, and even Ravana's fatal flaws, each offers a lesson in human nature and ideal conduct. And the beauty of the Ramayana is that it does not belong to one place, one era, or one telling. It lives in countless versions, in Sanskrit, regional Indian languages, Southeast Asian retellings, and modern adaptations that bridge continents and centuries. Each rendition carries its own emphasis, yet all preserve the essence, a journey toward righteousness, guided by courage, compassion, and faith. For those who have yet to explore it, the Ramayana is not just a book to be read. It is an experience to be lived. It invites us to walk alongside its heroes and villains, to wrestle with their choices, and to draw from their triumphs and failures the wisdom to navigate our own lives. Whether you encounter it in the verses of Valmiki, the songs of a village Ramlila, a Thai mural, or a modern graphic novel, its call remains the same, to strive for what is just, to love without fear, and to hold fast to what is true. The Ramayana is more than a tale, it's a journey through the heart of Dharma, devotion, and destiny. And that journey, as countless generations have discovered, is one worth taking again and again.